Hey there, my name's Emily Wong, and I am the owner of Fermly. And I am super excited today to be talking big quality energy, the assurance to be consistent. So, what is quality? As defined by the Brewers Association, a beer that is responsibly produced using wholesome ingredients, consistent brewing techniques, and good manufacturing practices, which exhibits flavor characteristics that are consistently aligned with both the brewers and the beer drinkers' expectations. Now, unlike some aspects of brewing, quality is chosen with a specific goal in mind to have great beer every time. So, this is only achievable through education, practice, and science. So it's easy to dismiss that there is a little to no consumer harm, unlike other food and beverage products, because frankly, they don't have alcohol. And that can often lead to lax practices. And those are often the root causes of quality issues. Ask questions like, what are the key quality criteria for our brand? And who has what responsibilities toward maintaining our product quality? Breweries continue to evolve with diversifying product portfolios with ready to drink cocktails, non alcoholics, slushy beers, and way more beyond the original concerns of quality that would come with a change in leadership, volume, and integrating adventurous yeasts, bacteria, and barrels. So take a look at what you define as quality in beer, how you do it, and who has this responsibility. And each brewery is unique, and only they can define what quality means for them and their goals. Now, quality control is reactive. Changes are made in response to measurements to prevent a product from being out of spec and is necessary for assessing performance. In quality control, it is critical to know all the specifications for materials, processes, and the product itself. Read the COAs, check the recipes, know your SOPs. Methods used during the process should be analytical and are designed for expedience and state of quality. In checking the pH, density, etc., to establish whether it is time to move to the next step in the process. Simply put, a go or no go scenario. Periodic audits are necessary for accountability and to improve these processes. So it isn't uncommon for people to skip steps for the sake of time or claim that quality control is about finding fault. But quality control is the best navigator to product excellence. Knowledge coupled with technology allows for follow through on necessary changes to continue to improve process and product. Quality assurance is proactive in having the understanding of what is specified and checking to make sure everything is accurate. It is essentially the quality conscience of the brewery. So, quality assurance works across departments, regulatory agencies, and customers. It is a source of materials, SOPs, guidelines, audits, and appraisals. Collecting accurate and detailed information about all levels of process and products is absolutely necessary and crucial to the maintenance and growth of a brewery. This includes, but is not limited to, maintaining a record of deviations, approvals, process specifications, material specifications, audits, technical services for anything legal, reviewing QC, consumer complaints. I know nobody actually wants to go on Untapped, but you're gonna have to, and much more. Examples of how these meet is QC is measuring the pH and adjusting the mash liquor. QA is training to measure pH and follow through with action if not in spec. Now, a normal example might be QC is regular brushing and flossing, and QA is the 6 month visit to the dentist. Notice something about that scenario? It can be the same person, but they need to be empowered with the knowledge and oop, they have to be empowered with the knowledge and methods to make necessary changes. QC usually receives more emphasis than QA because it is more tangible and sets easy points to see change. However, the lack of QA can cause problems. So it can be the difference between half-assing it twice when you can whole-ass it once, which will inevitably hit the financial bottom line at some point. Not all of these things are necessary or possible for every brewery, and this is where strategy and priorities come in. Now, specification and control limits are interlinked in the brewing process. Setting specifications, end user focus. So you need to be thinking about the customer and those specifications that they're expecting. Use control charting for setting upper and lower limits, prioritizing risks and understand and creating control parameters, establishing procedures for out of specification incidents, and keep these specifications simple and understandable. And Put limits based on customer needs, quality, and frankly, legal requirements. But you also need to make sure that you're clearly communicating these specifications and limit those to the relevant personnel. And then utilize that data for quality assurance and alignment with those quality priorities. Now, I love this. The quality priority pyramid was created by the Brewers Association's quality subcommittee. It is a visual representation of the foundations of a quality program. Think of it kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, except designed for the health of the brewery. So, tier one, we've got good manufacturing practices. Tier two, food safety. Tier three, process controls. Tier four, standards. Tier five, analysis. And tier six, continuous improvement and preventative maintenance. Now, I know this is a lot. So, GMPs are those standards ensuring compliance with federal, state, and county regulations, and this is mandated by the FDA for brewing. Vital for confidence in regulatory compliance, preventing penalties, legal issues, and frankly, bad publicity. Now, GMPs for craft brewers or GMP CBs is specific guidelines for breweries focusing on hygiene, cleanliness, and food safety risk reduction. These are enforced by state and or local health departments aiming to prevent food and beverage contamination. Now, these policies need to be implemented. They need to be clearly conveyed and with all those details to staff addressing what, how, and why, and then encourage the staff input, considering their unique perspectives and suggestions for improvements. And then have that training, incorporate the policies into that training, ensure regular reviews and revisions. Then we have record keeping, maintaining detailed records of SOPs, incidents, complaints, and maintenance activities. And then we have to have regular updates to those records to prevent burdensome accumulation, ensuring preparedness also for inspections. Then we have our sanitation procedures. Now, the master sanitation schedule is wonderful. It's a collaborative effort where you prioritize risk areas and gradually address lower risk zones. So you're going to be focusing, for example, you're going to be focusing a lot more on cleaning your brew house than you are this random little fitting that might be somewhere around your water filter and it probably only needs to be checked maybe every 6 to 12 months. You need to figure out your priorities. Obviously, the brew house is going to be a little bit more important. Responsibilities. Who's going to be handling that equipment? And if it's somebody that's in maintenance and it breaks down due to poor cleaning, well, it's going to be the maintenance team that's going to have to fix it. So you need to figure out who's responsible for that cleaning, obviously. And that allows operations to focus more on scheduling and those skills. Then we have validation. Regular validation is essential. Methods include microplating, ATP swabs, and visual assessments with validation responsibilities aligned with the cleaning personnel. Training should cover validation methods and criteria comprehensively. And then we have hazard analysis and critical control points, or HACCP. Some people call it and describe it differently. That's how I'm going to say it. We can fight later. QA program ensuring product consistency by reducing necessary analyses to impactful aspects of product quality. Now, this was developed in the 1950s by food scientists and engineers from NASA and a little baking company called Pillsbury for food safety in the space program. So the main steps is assess food production, and then identify those hazards compromising product quality, establish monitoring, reporting, and actions for critical control points. And then we need to have those implemented in breweries. But it's not mandatory in the US, but it is recommended after setting up good manufacturing practices. Certification involves training, individual certifications, and external audits. Actually, the Master Brewers Association of America offers really great resources for breweries seeking this certification. And even if you're not going to go for the certification, it's really good to set those kinds of standards so that in the event that you do need to go that extra mile and get that certification, you're already there. You're ready. So then we have types of hazards. Chemical hazards might be unacceptable levels of compounds like copper, presence of cleaners, or unexpected allergens. Biological hazards, microbes affecting the product, posing safety concerns for consumers and non alcoholic products. And then we have our physical hazards, foreign materials like glass, metal shavings, and plastic getting into the product stream. Frankly, we had a friend that got some new folders and he was so excited. But the problem was that they had used the wrong size screws. They were too long. And instead of, taking care of the problem in a proper way, they instead shaved down those screws and left the metal shavings in the photo. So that creates obviously a physical hazard, and that's something that you don't want to deal with. So there's several steps to HACCP. Hazard identification. Assess each step, evaluating potential harm and occurrence likelihood. Critical control points. Monitor points where hazards could harm consumers, distinguish those from control points, and then setting limits. Define upper and lower critical limits based on safety and quality within laboratory analysis limits. Now, monitoring procedures. Establish inline measurements, revise SOPs, and conduct specific analyses regularly. Corrective actions. Develop SOPs for product analysis, detailing steps to take if upper critical limits are reached. And then verification. Conduct those in house audits, document actions, and track effectiveness for continuous improvement. And then we have the importance of documentation. Documented procedures are crucial. Periodic reviews and corrective actions enhance plan effectiveness, ensuring product quality and safety. All right, so then we're on to process controls, and these are also known as quality control points or QCPs. At these points, it can help create consistent flavor, taste, color, alcohol, things like that. Knowing the raw ingredients are the COAs within spec, brewing process are the SOPs being followed, through packaging is the CO2 on, what are the DO levels, can help with that knowledge. The HACCP program already sets up for control points which can be used for the purpose of quality. So frequency should be established in a way that allows improved acquaintance with the peaks and valleys during the process. These checks vary depending on risk assessment, variation, monitoring, ease of access to perform measurements, and the cost and difficulty to check. A brewery's quality control evolves from controlling the outputs of a process to controlling inputs. If a brewery is an Olympic athlete, then they know what to input in for training and nutrition to get the best output in their race. It is through trial and error in the output that they learn how to best control the input. However, much like with a beer, there is no guarantee of a medal. And then we have to do standards. And those are all about detailing what the finished product should be and the processes used to make it. The product should have established recipes, and the aspects of the materials should be known: how it should smell, what it should taste like, look like, color, haze, what is going on at a chemical level, bitterness, acidity, off flavors, and biological bacteria and yeast. The processes used should be clearly written down and documented with SOPs. These should be regularly evaluated and checked for opportunities for efficiencies and other improvements without compromising product standards. Again, documentation matters. If these standards aren't written down and checked against, then there's no way to establish quality. And then we come up and we need to collect data about everything. It's really important to look at everything critically to create a complete quality program: physical, chemical, microbiological, and sensory. Basic analyses are a great start, but occasionally require equipment and instruments that may not be necessary on a day to day basis. Not all breweries have the time, equipment, or capacity to check for shelf life across a year of a brand, so reaching out to specialized labs may be necessary. So, all analyses should be integrated into QC and QA protocols to help improve education, training, and process. And then finally, we get to the top. We have continuous improvement and preventative maintenance. So, it took a lot of work to get here, but it's totally worthwhile to working towards prevention rather than reacting to issues, saving time and money. As issues are resolved, processes are improved. Continuous improvement becomes natural and quality becomes focused on prevention rather than reaction. Prevention is less expensive in the long run when compared to what reactive measures like a product recall can cost. So, before diving into certain aspects about training and the team and how that's all going to work out, I wanted to talk about how people really need to be willing to learn. So, we really need to build a culture of education, but let's also remember basically how learning can sometimes go. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias wherein people tend to overestimate their competence while failing to acknowledge their own mistakes and underestimating the expertise of others. It often leads to misplaced confidence, especially in those just starting a journey. However, as individuals gain experience and knowledge, they progress from the initial Mount Stupid phase to the plateau of sustainability, marked by self awareness and a willingness to learn. Recognizing this bias encourages a culture of continuous learning and openness to feedback, benefiting the brewing industry and fostering a better understanding of one's own abilities. And yes, I know, like that center part, the valley of despair, we all don't like being there, but it's a necessary part of growth and understanding and learning. So then we move on to total quality management. Traditionally, brewing remained unchanged for centuries, but the last 50 years have really ushered in rapid changes due to evolving customer tastes, craft beer popularity, and market competition. While some older breweries adapted quality programs out of necessity, and frankly, they had the time and the space to really figure those things out without a lot of observation, many new ones struggle due to the financial constraints and operational priorities. The challenge lies in balancing production demands with quality assurance. However, this challenge presents an opportunity for continuous improvement. By embracing total quality management principles where everyone is responsible for quality, focusing on processes, measurement, and continuous improvement, breweries can establish a culture of quality even in smaller operations. Collaborative efforts, attention to customer needs, and process control are key to delivering exceptional products. So, not very many people are familiar with quality governance, but it entails defining policies, strategies, specifications, and goals, essentially setting the expectation. So, some of the really important aspects is you need to have clearly defined individuals or roles determining brewery rules and expectations. And then you need to make sure that you're having good communication. Issues arise when authority shifts without proper communication, leading to potential conflicts of interest. And then formalization. We need to have those policies and expectations written down and incorporated into a quality manual that people can have access to. So, the quality manual is a comprehensive guide that contains quality values, governance details, specifications, and procedures. And these should be aligning with the overarching brewery values, such as continuous improvement, innovation, and community engagement. Now, when it comes to governance, quality managers set those specifications, procedures, and address quality issues and set those improvement goals. And then this is implemented by employees by following the quality manual, performing QA/QC, training others, taking corrective actions, and focusing on that continuous improvement. So, quality management is the practical implementation of policies outlined in the quality manual, ensuring alignment with brewery values and continuous improvement through data analysis and customer feedback. So then we come to quality management. QC involves routine checks and measurements, while QA assures data against standards. Just a reminder. So, you really want to empower the staff. Comprehensive training empowers employees to recognize issues, take corrective action, and suggest improvements. And then encourage that staff to perform QC checks, ensuring immediate corrective actions and reducing operational delays. Then we want to get to that continuous improvement, which involves troubleshooting, documenting issues, root cause analysis, and long term process enhancement. Then we have a structured approach because we want to begin with organized QC to establish those QA standards, and then we can focus on continuous improvement, and that enhances quality management but step by step. And then we want to have confidence in compliance. Adhering to those quality priorities instills confidence during inspections by regulatory bodies like the FDA and TTB and ensures process integrity and product specifications. Then we come to risk assessment. So it's a nuanced approach. You have to assess those risks based on ingredients, suppliers, equipment, and processes. Formalize those identified risks and control plans and brewing processes. And then be willing to adapt. Growing breweries face new challenges, assessing new products, materials, and suppliers, and that adds a lot of complexity. And then we come again to HACCP. HACCP aids in understanding and pinpointing risks, ensuring familiarity with incoming and outgoing brewery elements. And then we have FMEA, failure modes and effect analysis, which quantifies product quality risks, providing a basis for improvement priorities. And it has a simplified approach. If FMEA and HACCP are too complex, start with summarized controls, laying the foundation for future risk and risk assessments. And then we have audits. Now, the purpose of audits is threefold. So we have process evaluation, audits that assess operations, quality, SOP adherence, controls, and employee training, identifying issues and improvement opportunities. Then we have department inspection, focusing on training, job descriptions, policy awareness, and staff responsibilities to ensure clarity and competence. Then we have product analysis, and that examines data and consumer feedback. It's comparing product changes over time, ensuring specifications, adherence, and addressing quality issues. Now, there are a few different types of audits: process audits, evaluating SOPs, process controls, employee hygiene, and good manufacturing practices to maintain those quality standards. Department audits, review training, policy accessibility, staff awareness, and adherence to job roles and responsibilities. Then we have our product audits, and that analyze changes in product specifications, consumer perceptions, and quality due to process modifications, raw material variations, or new procedures. And then we have to consider timing. It needs to be strategic when you do these audits. They are usually crucial post initial setup and significant changes. They should be conducted thoughtfully to avoid process, product, or staff degradation. Whew. Now, before diving into all the super fun instruments and methods that help us put numbers to an art, let's consider what we do with that data. Where is it being recorded? Is it on paper, in binder somewhere? Is it in a spreadsheet that is supposed to be used to make graphs, but no one ever does that unless there is an issue? Now there is an assortment of brewing software that can be integrated into the brewery and help with tracking all of this data. Many of these can be set up with control limits, specs, and so much more with customizable graphs, so ensuring quality is easier. The data, when put into a usable form, can be used for continuous improvement of the process, checking safety of the product, tracking down sources of issues like root cause, but also can help keep in compliance with those governing bodies. Now, I just wanted to make sure that people were aware that you can go to the American Society of Brewing Chemists as a great resource for a lot of these methods, instruments, and a lot of really great discussion. What started off as standardizing methods for malt analysis has continued to set up standards for a variety of aspects in fermentation. These methods are used not only by labs, but also by government organizations like the TTB for certifications. The TTB certifies people that have proper education to understand the analyses and utilize the instruments, not facilities. So, very important to remember, it's people, not instruments. But when we talk about instruments, how are we choosing them? So, you have to, this is applicable to a lot of purchases that we make in our lives. You can only pick two, but your options are affordable, easy, or accurate. Chances are, if it's accurate and easy, it's probably pretty expensive. And if it's affordable and accurate, it's probably going to be hard to use. So you really need to consider this and where you want to value your time when you're making these choices. So, amongst the first instruments I'm going to talk about, density meters. So, they measure the density of a liquid. Astonishingly, a lot of brewers seem to think density and specific gravity are the same thing. They're not. Specific gravity is calculated from the density. Specific gravity is a measure of the effect of the density of all compounds in the solution. Essentially, multiple solutions can have the same density, but very different composition. So the major things that are in a brewery that would impact density are sugars, ethanol, but other solutes can be present. Density can be extremely inaccurate depending on concentrations of particular solutes. So density meters measure liquid density, and specific gravity, indicating solution composite and composition, is calculated from that density. Hydrometers, super simple and commonly used for density measurements. You drop them into a glass tube, preferably a graduated cylinder, and readings are taken at the bottom of at the top of the meniscus. It's affordable and reliable, but specific gravity calculation is required separately. And frankly, it's very, very easy to use. My first time using a hydrometer was when I was in seventh grade. So, very easy to use. Gravimetric density meters are super cool because they use U tubes and a light beam to measure liquid density depending on how much that U tube bends apart. So it calculates density from mass and volume, and some models automatically report specific gravity. They can be expensive, but they're highly accurate and can control temperature for some more complex analyses. Then we have refractometers, and they assess the sugar content by measuring light refraction through a sample. They provide results in units like degrees, Plato, or bricks, which are converted to specific gravity. They're simple, inexpensive, but accuracy affected by temperature variations and knowledge gaps in sugar and alcohol content. And then we have viscometers, and they measure liquid viscosity, indicating resistance to flow. And it evaluates flow speed through a tube or a solid falling in a liquid. If you want to cover more on fluid dynamics and how all that works, love to chat with you later, but we're not going to go into that right now. Then we have pH meters. pH is critical in several processes, and it indicates brew house performance, water chemistry, and is used in cleaning chemistry. So the electrodes measure the potential change when a sample is exposed to a salt bridge. The electrical potential that is measured across the glass membrane of the probe is a result of the difference in electric charge between the liquids. This charge is equated to pH. It is fairly rapid to check and is repeatable. pH meters are inexpensive and can be significantly impacted by temperature, so that can affect accuracy. It also requires a particular amount of care, like not letting the probe dry out, scrubbing, etc. pH papers are convenient, but they can vary depending on the person doing the reading, and it's also important to consider accessibility since some people won't be able to do it if they are colorblind. Then we have spectrophotometry, and that involves analyzing solutions using light, not delving into light physics though here. Light passes through the liquid, it's detected by a sensor, and that provides insights about the solution's molecules. So there's infrared analysis, and that uses non-visible infrared light to determine alcohol percentage and explore other analyte structures. Sample preparation tends to be pretty simple, but sample chamber issues exist due to sodium chloride, and that can impact accuracy. Now, it assumes absence of similar compounds, and equipment costs can vary with preference to NIR technology. Then we have our UV vis, ultraviolet visible analysis, and that measures solution absorbance at a specific wavelengths. And this can be included in colorimetric methods in the visible spectrum. So if you want to know exactly what your SRM is, you're going to need a UV vis and probably a really good nanometer filter. Common, and it's relatively inexpensive to get UV vis instruments that can be used for a diverse amount of analyses, but it does require chemical understanding and training, and it has limited sensitivity for certain control limits or customer requirements. Then we have chromatography, and this is a technique for separating compounds in mixtures, both in gas and liquid. It involves a mobile and a stationary phase. Interactions separate those compounds based on polarity, size, and volatility. Not going to go into atomic interactions. Obviously, I need to really do a more comprehensive physics course at some point for brewers, but not today. Thin layer chromatography is pretty fun. It's a qualitative method. It uses a thin plate with a stationary phase in a liquid pool. And it just mostly provides foundational understanding for advanced chromatography techniques like gas chromatography, which analyzes volatile compounds in a gas state using gas as a mobile phase. It's precise, but it requires trained personnel and, frankly, kind of expensive equipment, and it's used for alcohol, BDKs, and more. Then we have our high performance liquid chromatography and HPLC, and that separates non-volatile compounds using pressurized liquid and the flexible mobile phase. And then specialized expensive equipment, and this offers super detailed analysis with various detectors. However, chromatography yields super valuable data, but it also requires a bit of caution because it is so complex, and the machine and the equipment and the instruments are so expensive. Then we have microbiology, and we know that beer is not a hospitable place for microbes, but it's crucial for us to do this to detect contamination and ensure beer quality. Beer's alcohol, low pH, and isoalpha acids deters most microbes, but some yeast and bacteria can survive. So there's an increasing importance due to ingredient variations and a higher presence in the non-alcoholic beer market, and that necessitates awareness and usage of HACCP programs. Then we have methods that include aseptic sampling, gram staining for identifying microbes, media growth, polymerase chain reaction for specific genetic sequences, which is super awesome because it gives you those really rapid results, usually within hours. And with conventional plating, you might be waiting days. But chances are you're going to need both to really have a fully well-rounded out QA/QC program. So each method has its advantages. Aseptic sampling is practical, while PCR offers rapid results but can be very costly. And then we talk about packaging. So this is a really critical step for breweries because it's your last opportunity to catch issues before products leave the brewery. So monitoring dissolved oxygen and CO2 levels are essential for quality. Deviations need immediate attention and probably management action. Total package oxygen TPO measurement is crucial and it distinguishes headspace and liquid oxygen, but it must be done shortly after packaging. When someone says that they can do it, um, just mail it out to them and they'll check it, it's not going to be accurate, not nearly to the extent that you really need it to be. It needs to be so soon after packaging. And then microbiological checks are vital for contamination prevention and maintaining sanitation standards in complex equipment. Now, pasteurization is gaining a lot more importance. So there's a flash method, which is rapid but raises contamination risk. The tunnel method ensures sealed, sterile packages, but at a higher cost and space, also not very sustainable. And then there's also a sensory impact on taste that should be considered alongside that microbial safety. Now, I really love this. So many breweries believe they need more instruments than they actually do for their size. Others have far less than what they should. So the ASBC put together a really handy guide for this, but it is a guide, not a rule. Each brewery needs to figure out their quality priorities and if the recommended instruments and procedures make sense for them. There are breweries that produce 10,000 barrels per year that make do with the same amount of instruments for a 500 barrel brewery, but they trust their people and they know what to do with that information. Having instruments and procedures are not enough. People need to be trained not only to use them, but to understand the results and utilize the data to improve quality. One can have a top of the line lab, but it means nothing if the people aren't there to back it up. The more sophisticated the instruments, the more important training and expertise become. So, what are some things that you can do tomorrow? Review your SOPs. Are they being followed? When were they last updated? Who updated them? Are there tips and tricks that should be on there, like quirks with a particular piece of equipment? Check and calibrate the instruments that are used for QA/QC. When was the last time they were checked? Has a pH meter been calibrated? Is it someone's responsibility or is it on an as we remember kind of basis, which is basically how I water my plants? Evaluate your QA/QC budget. Is there one? What is the opportunity to upgrade instruments? What is the plan if something goes awry? What things can be supported with more knowledge? And then what are the educational opportunities? Are there organizations that staff could join for education? Are there scholarships available? Is there a budget for education to support and empower staff? There's always the argument to not invest money into training because what if someone leaves? Which I get it, that's fair. But what if you don't train them and they stay? And then check that communication. Does the front of house feel comfortable mentioning that they tasted an off flavor to the back of house? If someone notices a mistake being made, do they speak up or stay silent? And if they are silent, why? Did something go awry and someone definitely knew? Did they try to fix it? If they weren't successful, why? Was it lack of training? So you really got to think about these things, but these are all stuff that you can just check out tomorrow. And they're very easy. It's just a few questions and basically looking up a few things. So this is my final message. Quality is not about money. It is about education, empowerment, accountability, and communication. No instrument or cost will be more important than honing a team that can act with immediacy, integrity, and honesty. And that is how you get big quality energy. And that way you don't have to brew around and find out. So feel free to reach out to me. I got resources, definitely some books that I highly recommend everyone take a look at. I also have several websites in case you are bored and feel like not going down the Wikipedia rabbit hole. And yeah, if there's any questions, uh, you can feel free to drop them in the chat. Other than that, you can reach out to me at my email address, emily@fermly.com. You can also follow on Instagram at Fermly No and at Fermly LLC on Facebook. And thank you so much.